Okay, let's just jump right in. You know how incredibly easy it is to get completely caught up in today's headlines, right? Well, today we're going to look past the immediate noise and uncover a surprising, often forgotten historical connection between two seemingly completely different nations. As objective observers, we're going to impartially map out the fascinating shared historical patterns of Ireland and Israel. We are diving straight into the realities of how both groups experienced long periods of external rule and why public perception in Ireland regarding this shared history has shifted so dramatically in recent times. Now, to be clear, there's no taking sides here. We're just taking a clear, fast-paced look at the past to better understand the present. Let's get started. So if you travel to Israel today, you'll actually find a place called the Devera Forest. And if you happen to be walking through Dublin, you might just come across Herzog Park. Now, these aren't just random names on a map. They are physical, tangible links. They stand as absolute evidence of a period when the deep parallels between the Irish and Jewish experiences were widely recognized and actively commemorated. It was a moment of true alignment, a mutual understanding of what it really means to fight for sovereignty. But to grasp exactly why these links exist, we have to look at the foundational history that both of these people share.
And it really all boils down to this. Both Irish and Jewish histories share a profound, overarching pattern. We're talking about a homeland enduring long, heavy periods of external governance. Imagine living in a reality where the very land beneath your feet is controlled from the outside, where vital political decisions about your life are made entirely elsewhere. Under conditions like that, your national identity isn't just formed, it is forged under immense, sustained pressure. For both of these groups, control of their historical land was constantly shifting between different dominant global powers over vast stretches of time.
Let's take Ireland, for example. This wasn't just some brief hiccup in history. This was a centuries-long reality. For hundreds of years under British rule, land, authority, and culture were essentially directed from the outside. Land ownership continuously changed hands, which often left the local population entirely disenfranchised. Political authority? That was external too. Even cultural and economic systems were heavily influenced, and sometimes completely overwritten, by an outside force. This specific, undeniable experience fundamentally shaped the nation's identity, its politics, and its long-term memory.
Now, shift gears for a second. The historical lands tied to Jewish identity saw similar, sweeping, massive shifts in control. We aren't talking about one continuous system here. It's more like a giant puzzle where the pieces keep changing hands. You have antiquity under various imperial powers, transitioning to Islamic empires, then the Ottoman Empire, and eventually British administration in the 20th century. Obviously, the specific timelines and historical details are completely different from Ireland, but the broader pattern? It remains identical. Control of the land shifts between external powers, and for long extended periods, the local population simply does not hold full political control.
So when you put them side by side, the striking symmetry is pretty undeniable. In Ireland, land ownership and identity were entirely reshaped by British rule. In historical Jewish lands, control shifted like sand between massive empires over millennia, leaving local populations without full political sovereignty over the very land tied to their identity. It is this exact shared pattern, existing as a homeland under external governance, that created such a uniquely strong point of historical comparison between the two groups.
Now you might be wondering, why does this matter? Well, because Ireland's experience with colonization is so absolutely central to its national identity, there is this natural instinct to look for parallels elsewhere in the world. When you have spent centuries fighting for sovereignty and control over your own land, your worldview is permanently shaped by that struggle. Historically, this shared background brought the Irish and Jewish narratives into moments of deep, genuine sympathy. It was this mutual recognition of the heavy toll that long-term external rule takes on a people's identity and their connection to their homeland.
But that brings us to a fascinating paradox that we really need to neutrally examine. If these historical experiences parallel one another so closely, why does the dominant public perception in Ireland look so remarkably different today? The mutual recognition that actually built Herzog Park and the De Valera Forest seems to have kind of faded in the modern era. To truly understand this, we have to look at how societies process information over generations and how the lens through which we view history can dramatically, and sometimes quickly, change.
To answer that, we've got to look at the mechanics of human memory. You see, people don't just objectively study history in a vacuum, they interpret it. And those interpretations are actively filtered right through the lens of their present day. Current events, modern media consumption, changing educational systems, and contemporary political framing, they all play massive roles in how a nation remembers its own history and then applies it to the rest of the world.
Think about the generational shift. Earlier generations in Ireland were chronologically much closer to their own independence, making them highly attuned to these parallels. They readily recognize the shared patterns of external rule. But as time passes, the global lens shifts. The way the Middle East is framed globally by the media has fundamentally changed over time. Today, new generations in Ireland filter global events through modern media and evolving narratives, applying their own historical framework in a completely different way than their grandparents did.
Now, the danger here is that without deep historical context, it is incredibly easy to reduce a highly complex web into a simplified single story. And the Middle East? It is the definition of a complex web. We're talking multiple overlapping empires, distinct populations living side by side, and fiercely competing historical claims. It is definitively not a single story. When people attempt to view this highly complex region solely through the specific lens of their own national history, they really risk missing the massive intricacies that make the region unique.
Basically, applying Ireland's specific colonial experience as an exact template to the Middle East misses some absolutely critical differences. This is a danger of oversimplification that we've seen repeatedly across history. Trying to force one nation's specific historical template onto an entirely separate region rarely works flawlessly. And honestly, it often leads to deep misunderstanding. While historical patterns of external rule can create valid points of comparison, those comparisons have to be handled incredibly carefully. History is rarely a perfect copy and paste job, and ignoring different contexts leads to a very partial, incomplete understanding.
So, as objective observers, our takeaway isn't about taking a side. It's about understanding that while shared patterns of external rule clearly exist, applying them without accounting for differing contexts leads to a partial understanding. Both the Irish and Jewish histories absolutely share long, difficult periods of external control over land intimately tied to their identities. Those parallels are 100% real, but they exist right alongside deep contextual differences. Understanding that modern opinions are shaped heavily by shifting global narratives allows us to view this whole topic with much more clarity. Recognizing these historical connections doesn't give us absolute certainty about modern politics for sure, but it undeniably adds profound depth to our understanding of the world.
Recognizing these forgotten parallels adds rich depth to our understanding, leaving us to ask, are our modern interpretations clarifying history, or are we just oversimplifying it? History is not static. It is constantly interpreted, reinterpreted, and far too often simplified to fit a comfortable modern narrative. But when you step back and utilize a structured approach to look at the broader patterns, you can see where powerful historical connections exist, even if they are no longer widely recognized. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, keep looking for the nuance, and never settle for just the simple narrative.